Wednesdays are for people's elbows, super kicks, and springboard cutters. You know what that means. It's the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast hosted by Michael Davis on Boom Broadcasting, and it's time to pick up that mic. This just seems to be the week we're trying things just a little bit different. We debuted a new intro to Dad and the Boys last week. We debuted a whole new setup for Out of Pocket when we moved to 1 hour starting yesterday. Thank you guys for supporting. And now we're doing something a little bit different with the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And also, when do I ever wear a bland white t-shirt, the V-neck, today on Drop the Mic? Well, the only issue is I do not need any blood. Anytime you see a wrestler with a white t-shirt, it's about to get bloody. It's about to get gross. And I want no part of that. What I do want part of is AEW All Out predictions. And that's what we have for you today. So we're not going to take a lot of time. Let's just go ahead, knock these All Out predictions out. What I will say before we get started is I still do not like the setup of All In being 2 weeks before All Out. That doesn't allow us to breathe as wrestling fans. We had All In, we had Bash in Berlin, we had NXT No Mercy, and we have All Out all within a 2-week span. It's just too much. And I love wrestling, but it's too much, especially. Now, I don't fault WWE for this at all, because they had SummerSlam at the beginning of the month, and they had a pay-per-view at the end of the month. AEW has 2 pay-per-views, like, 2 weeks apart. This would be like a pay-per-view immediately following WrestleMania, which WWE has done before. I just don't like it. I'll just be honest. I wish we had time. Now, I say this because we only have 6 matches to cover on the All Out card, but I know how AEW works. Dynamite airs tonight at 8 o'clock, and we're probably going to add 3 or 4 new matches to this, making this podcast not entirely outdated, but pretty close. So hopefully you're watching before all of that happens, but I'm going to go down the card and see what we have. First things first, we have Will Ospreay and Pac. We got these guys. It is going to be absolutely fantastic what these guys do. I think these are 2 of the best in-ring workers that we have. The only thing that could have been even better is if we got Ospreay Ricochet. That has been teased, but it's just not happening quite yet. What I do believe will happen is Ospreay's not losing this title anytime soon. Let's hold on that, because Ospreay's not losing this title anytime soon. And I'll be honest, it feels like the entirety of this show is almost predictable that Ospreay's going to win this match. It's going to be an absolute banger. And somebody made the comment earlier this week that any of Will Ospreay's matches could be match of the year. I totally agree. This could be one of them. And that's what you need for this All Out pay-per-view is there's not a lot of stories, and that's the knock on AEW, right? There's not a lot of stories, but what you can do is you can have an absolute banger. That's what I think happens. Will Ospreay retains his international championship. And then the man he beat for the international championship, the former American champion MJF, wrestling Danny Garcia. I did not love Danny Garcia costing MJF the American/International Championship at All In, but you had to finish the story. You had to finish this rivalry. We get Danny Garcia, MJF, 2 of the young guys who are going to be foundational pieces for AEW. 2 guys who got paid a lot of money to stay in AEW rather than jump ship to WWE. Triple H is not happy that Tony Khan can open his dad's pocketbook and sign the guys he wants to. MJF got the poker chip on his ankle Danny Garcia got the bag here recently to stay in AEW. What I believe happens is I believe MJF wins, but there's no Dynamite Diamond Ring. MJF's not going to win clean. What's going to happen is MJF is going to debut a new weapon of choice and attack Danny Garcia with it. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. Chef's kiss, and like Mike would do, the Italian. We're not talking about Tony D'Angelo. We're talking about MJF, and he's better than you, and he's better than Danny Garcia, and we all know it. Up next, we have Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander, CMLL Women's Championship, and this will be a Chicago street fight. Of course, Stokely Hathaway is going to get involved in this match. It's no surprise, no big deal, but I do have Willow Nightingale retaining her championship. It's too soon. It's too soon for her. Also, when you talk about marketability, you have to talk marketability when you talk about when somebody defends another company's championship. You rarely see those change hands on a company other than their own. So the CMLL women's title will likely not be changing hands at an AEW All Out show to an AEW lifer, Chris Statlander. As good as this rivalry's been, I'm glad it's for the title. I'm glad it's a Chicago street fight to put an emphasis on both of these women. I just think there's a lot more marketability for Willow Nightingale and New Japan rather than Chris Statlander. It's going to be nasty. And who knows? Maybe one of them wear a white shirt and get blood all over it. Who knows? We're going to see blood at some point in this pay-per-view. I just don't know when. As a matter of fact, I do know when. Willow Nightingale wins this match. And here's the match that has the blood. Steel cage at Hangman Page. Swerve Strickland. There is bad blood between these two, and we're not talking the WWE pay-per-view in Atlanta, Georgia. We're talking AEW All Out Chicago, Illinois. Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland. It's going to get brutal. It's going to get nasty. If you think the drinking blood incident that happened nearly a year ago was bad, just you wait. It's amazing to me how this rivalry, how this feud has lasted so long. So long. Dating back to last year at Full Gear when they drank each other's blood and it was nasty, it was brutal, it was gruesome. But a star was made. Swerve Strickland, that catapulted him to eventually becoming the AEW World Champion at Double or Nothing and having the summer of Swerve until it was ruined by Bryan Danielson. We'll talk about the World Championship match a little later on in this episode. Swerve Strickland, to me, became a star that night. Now, here's the interesting part nobody wants to talk about. Hangman Page was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the face of this new company when it comes to younger guys. From the very start, from the first press conference, he was supposed to be the first AEW World Champion. Chris Jericho beats him, overcomes him. Okay, and then we got Jon Moxley, and then we got Kenny Omega, and then we got Hangman Page. And Hangman Page did the best he could. I love Hangman Page. I've met him several times when he was Hangman. I've met him when he was Country Jack Adam Page. He's absolutely fantastic. But what I will say is that title reign, many people think was lackluster. I don't necessarily believe it was. I feel like people on the internet give other wrestlers a hard time when they're not talking to them face to face. I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to do that. But it's amazing that Swerve became a star in a match against Hangman Page, and nearly a year later, it looks like Hangman Page has revived himself character-wise and can provide that for Swerve Strickland. This is going to be an absolute bloodbath inside a steel cage. Give me Hangman Page. Swerve loses at All In. Swerve loses at All Out. Starts to spiral. But Hangman gets his revenge. But this is far from over. We might get Hangman Swerve at Full Gear 2 years in a row. Who's complaining about it? Not me. Mercedes Moné. Hikaru Shida. TBS Championship. Again, I feel like these matches are predictable. If Mercedes Moné is not going to lose the championship to Britt Baker last week at All In, she's not losing it to Hikaru Shida. Can we stop talking about this? I wonder when Dr. Britt Baker shows up. I wonder how much Camille will be involved. But yeah, can we move on? This is obvious. Mercedes Moné is retaining her championship, which brings me Bryan Danielson, Jack Perry for the AEW Championship. The TNT title is not on the line, and Jack Perry is the current TNT champion, but he's skyrocketed himself into the main event picture against Bryan Danielson, who is working without a contract, apparently, and he will be retiring when he loses his championship. Can we just be real? Like, I know Bryan Danielson debuted in Chicago at this pay-per-view 3 years ago. I know that. But Bryan Danielson is not losing this championship. No disrespect to Jack Perry. No disrespect to AEW's booking. Bryan Danielson is not going to take the title off of Swerve Strickland and then a week later drop it to Jack Perry right before AEW goes to Washington, the state of Washington, the home state of Bryan Danielson, next month. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, this is clearly the chance to allow Bryan Danielson to have a successful title defense on pay-per-view. And it's against Jack Perry, who's not going to be hurt by a loss. He's already TNT champion. He'll just go about his business on Wednesday. A week from now, he'll go on about his business, and it'll be like, oh, he wrestled Bryan Danielson at a pay-per-view. This is a big moment for Jack Perry. Because let's think about what Bryan Danielson has done for the last 3 years. CM Punk made comments 3 years ago that, him and Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole, baby, was the ultimate trio, likening them to Hogan and Nash and Hall coming from WWF. Well, let's review 3 years in advance. I mean, CM Punk was the big money guy. WWE couldn't get him to come back. TNA couldn't get him to come back. New Japan couldn't. Nobody could except AEW and Tony Khan. CM Punk was the guy that was going to attract people to watch AEW because they're like, CM Punk wrestling? Really? Bryan Danielson had neck issues. He wasn't supposed to wrestle this long. He was supposed to have been retired years ago. Almost a decade ago was when he won the WrestleMania 30 main event against Randy Orton and Batista. Had to vacate due to injury. Won the Intercontinental title. A year later, had to vacate that due to injury. He should have not lasted this long. And then you had Adam Cole, who was the young future. The future was his. And he had main event written all over him. And he's been the one who's been hurt. CM Punk's gone. Bryan Danielson has remained healthy, and he has helped AEW in more ways than one, including main event in a stadium sold out in London, Wembley Stadium, and win the AEW World Championship for the first time in his career, prolonging his career to at least WrestleDream. He's not losing to Jack Perry. Quit it. But this will still be a great match. And Bryan Danielson, enjoy every moment you can watching Bryan Danielson right now. This is awesome, and I can't wait to see more of Bryan Danielson. Like I mentioned, this is a predictable show. This is what you get when you just throw a pay-per-view 2 weeks later after your biggest stadium event. But as wrestling fans, should we complain? As wrestling fans, will we sit at our TV and watch AEW go all out? Will we watch Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry? Will we watch Will Ospreay versus Pac? Will we watch Swerve versus Hangman Page? I can answer with a resounding, well, you get it. This is going to be awesome. It's going to be a great time. Just grab some food, grab a nice little beverage, and just enjoy the show. Much like I hope you enjoyed Drop the Mic today, a shorter episode than usual, but wanted to get these all out predictions out quickly and briefly. Also, I am doing hour-long out-of-pocket episodes Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern because you guys wanted it. And Boom's bringing you so much more content. I want you guys to actually have time to enjoy other content, other shows. We had Quick Hits drop this morning. We're having Lombardi Party for Green Bay Packers fans later tonight, as well as the AEW Dynamite Nightcap with Mouthing Off with Mike. Out of Pocket will be back tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And you know what? Since Out of Pocket is an hour now, maybe on Friday we'll talk a little more wrestling. Extend Top Rope Tuesday to Pinfall Friday. We'll put a pin in it. No pun intended. But that has been your Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. Please, please, please. We're trying to get to 400 subscribers by the end of the week. Not as a number, not as something to boast, but just as we want as many people to enjoy the content that myself and so many others are putting so much time and effort and energy into. And it's awesome. It helps support us. It's totally free to hit that subscribe button. So I hope you'll consider doing that. But for Michael Davis, this has been the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And we got to get out of here. Whatever you do, don't drop that mic. And we will catch you here next week.